Am I dreaming again? This is different. It isn't my recurring dream. I can't stop walking. My legs aren't responding.
What is going on, everybody? Hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for joining me once again on Call of the Sea. We are nearing the midway point of this game, maybe chapter-wise, but not really story-wise. And this one is a doozy for sure. I would say the most non-linear, the most number of puzzles, whether that be big or small, and probably one of the more difficult ones as well. I mean, I found myself kind of having to guess and look through it, and now even after like 3 or 4 times. But this is a great level nonetheless, so I'm excited to jump back into this with you guys. Like usual, I'm going to kind of let the exposition roll here as much as I can, but I will jump in times of need.
I have to get back. I have to find... What is that? What kind of creature is this? I need to get a closer look. What happened? Oh, how did I get to this beach? Oh, I have a terrible headache.
Well, after a fascinating entrance there, after that abrupt ending in Chapter 2, we find ourselves in front of the wreck of the Lady Shannon, which we just saw back through the telescope, so we covered ground quickly. I guess that's what happens when you swim. It's very eerie out here right now, obviously. We're in a storm, and there's a lot to find and discover in this area, a lot to learn. And I certainly found myself backtracking quite a bit on this chapter, whether it be because I think I forgot to check something out, or I found a new avenue to travel through. This level is certainly the most open world, I would say.
The ship's hull was ripped open. A few jagged rocks couldn't have caused a gash of this size.
So there are a lot of options, for your first point of interest in this chapter. Of course, you can run straight for this ship like I did here. But, as you may have noticed, there's a lot going on out on the beach as well, out on the shore, and tucked into the mountains. So you can really go whichever way you want first. But I think we are, ultimately being driven to the ship first. It is the closest thing to us, and we'll see once we get inside here. There's kind of a circuit breaker, or a set of them, rather. And we need to hit them in a certain order in order to turn on some kind of power, turn on the electricity for something. So I finally pull it off here. But I think what we need in the rest of the map right now is some light. So I would recommend heading for the Lady Shannon first, though you can certainly check out the beach. You'll find yourself coming this way regardless.
Oh, green. Now, what exactly did I turn on? voice? Is that Harry?
Unaccounted for. 5 of us have survived, but we're stranded on this island. Please
No,
send help
just a recording.
This is a distress call from the Everheart.
Even the crew of the ship that brought Harry's expedition to this island were afraid of it.
The Lady Shannon has run aground.
This is the captain's last entry.
Unaccounted for. 5 of us have survived, but we're stranded on this island. Please send help immediately. This is a distress call from the Everheart.
Frank is certainly a resourceful man.
Miles east of Tahiti. The Lady Shannon has run aground. Its crew
What were you looking for in the heart of the island?
unaccounted for. 5 of us have survived, but we're stranded on this island. Please send help immediately.
Apparently, Harry's expedition waited for a long time to be rescued.
This is a
Did they give up hope?
from the Everheart expedition.
Maybe the legend is more real than it seems.
The Lady Shannon has run aground. Its crew is unaccounted for. 5 of us
These
have
knobs must
survived.
control the vibrations inside this chamber.
Island. Please send help immediately.
The black ooze's properties are perplexing.
So there is a lot to learn in this room here,
I
up
was
in the ship,
completely
regarding the
covered in
story.
that black
However, there is also a very important piece of information dashed inside of this containment chamber of 3 kind of blocks of black ooze. And I think it's easy to gloss over this at first and just expect to not know how to do it. I mean, personally speaking, at least. But ultimately, what we can do on this, actually, we can solve it right now, is we want to balance these discs. As you can see, some of them impact the others, so that turns into a bit of a puzzle, of course. But it's pretty simple nonetheless. You kind of have to hack around with it for a while. But ultimately, I think you need to kind of shoot for getting them all. I don't really know if you can balance them all when they're super high or low. I think it kind of needs to happen actually up in the middle, because that's the only place where it'll activate the lights, even if you have them balanced elsewhere. And what we do once we do that, we're going to take down some frequencies actually, some numbers in hertz, which I guess would be representative of a note or something like that. So we'll certainly put that to use later, but make sure you check out everything else in this room.
The Lady Shannon has run aground. Its crew is unaccounted for.
I'd better write down those numbers in my journal.
We're stranded on this island. Please send help immediately. This is a distress call from the Everheart expedition. 74 nautical miles east of Tahiti. The Lady Shannon has run aground. Its crew is unaccounted for. 5 of us have survived, but we're stranded on this island. Please send help immediately. This is a distress call from the Everheart expedition. 74 nautical miles east of Tahiti. The Lady Shannon has run aground. Its crew is unaccounted for. 5 of us have survived, but we're stranded on this island.
Only God knows how long I've been covered in this black liquid. I wonder what it's going to do to me. Although I doubt anything could be worse than my illness. At last, some light.
So with the power on, the other parts of this map are a little bit less frightening. If you come over here in the dark, you can of course still see mostly everything, but I think the light obviously reveals a little bit more. A few extra items here and there. Here's the secret item. for Chapter 3. Kind of stumbled upon that by accident, actually. I hadn't even seen that before. But that just goes to show that you can really see something else every time you play these levels. So that one is pretty well tucked away there. We're also going to see, through the development of the story, that the crew, the expedition, is starting to fall into disrepair. The doctor, something seems to be wrong with him, certainly. And I think tensions are high between the other members of the group. So we're going to continue to learn about the conflict and things like that. But I would just recommend you really try to dig through all the details in these areas. Reveal parts of your journal and possibly parts of the puzzle. There's really a lot to see.
It's stained with blood and black. A white fedora. It's really dirty. Oh dear. This doc was a certifiable loon. These medical tools are hair-raising. I'm glad you stayed by his side, whoever you are. Looks like Frank wanted to leave, but I don't know if Harry ever read this letter. These two fellows seem to get along pretty well. The expedition only has 5 members now. Pulp magazine. I love Chandra Hogarth stories. Never heard of this Eric Zahn fella. A portable typewriter. Photographic film. Oh my. Goodness me, what a collection of happy... I believe Harry visited this exposition when he was looking for answers for my illness.
So, is this recording?
Mm-hmm.
Well, shouldn't we be listening to something, Frank?
I have assembled and disassembled it twice. So it should be fixed, Mr. Everhart. I don't know. Maybe it was never meant to play music.
DeWitt, where have you been this whole time?
Oh my God. He's got a knife.
Get off me, you lunatic!
Hold him! Hold him, for Christ's sake! Call the Aroa, quick!
hope you didn't borrow this slide projector from the University of Denver, old pal.
So once again, we find a very well detailed camp
never
of
seen
Harry's
so
back
angry.
away from the others, and this one, like in the
You
last
always did
chapter,
have a good ear.
is just a wealth of information.
How can someone build something like this out of stone? Captain Hodgson told me that knowing the lunar cycles is useful for better navigation at night.
One thing I would certainly recommend is going after this little piano and hitting all of the keys, because every time you hit a key,
What is this?
you'll take down the frequency that is associated with it up there on the dial. And if you'll remember from earlier, we took down 3 notes, or frequencies rather, from that little machine up in the ship. We're certainly going to use those later on. We're going to match together 3 frequencies we saw up in the ship with whatever's associated there down below.
Well tuned. I expected no less. Wow, look at the size of these stones.
This piece of paper is
Seal
also
the
super
link to the
important
piano
because it will
keys.
tell you which symbol is associated with which note. So I would, check that out initially, or when you ultimately need it later on, and figure out what 3 frequencies match with which symbol on that keyboard that you just took down from that piece of paper.
Sometimes I still doubt whether this isn't just some ghastly dream. It's curious, but it's the first time since I got sick that I feel useful. Harry is depending on me, and not the other way around. What odd structure. It doesn't look like a building, though. Some kind of improvised workshop. This must be the highest part of the island. And that diamond shape again. How striking. You made it work, Harry. Now it's my turn. So this is the reason the ship was scavenged. What kind of machine were you building? Blowtorch. Looks like it's been used a lot. Harry isn't usually very chummy, but he really seems to like Frank. burned photo. I can't make out what's in it.
So now that we've got the power back on and we've visited Harry's tent, taken down some of that important information, maybe put two and two together, I think it's time to check out the third and final kind of major area of this chapter, and it's up here in the cliffs. So if you've put together enough information down here on the ground, you're going to realize that the expedition has stumbled upon an even stranger piece of ancient technology up here in the mountains.
Back home.
And it seems to be an instrument of some kind, and
I've been interested in knowing
we've been
how
coming
things work
across
since I was
some
a
instruments
child.
ourselves, or at least
I always thought
some
technology
frequencies of
was
notes, which may certainly apply up here, kind of as the big concluding puzzle in this area.
That huge stone door looks like an exit. How does it open? This ornate structure certainly isn't natural, but not man-made either. This feels ominous. Must be instructions to operate this bizarre structure.
So what we stumble upon up here in the mountains is actually a
Those
massive
symbols seem to
water
indicate
organ
the
of
height
sorts.
the tide.
At least that's the best way I can describe it. It's certainly an instrument of some kind, and it has different valves that you can open basically by flipping these switches with symbols on them, all scattered throughout the area. Some of them are kind of tough to find, so I think I obviously come in contact with all of them here. There's actually one in the hallway and a couple back down on the ground, but an important piece of information that we need to gather is down there, if you take those stairs down, you're going to see basically it's a water level indicator, and that's important because if you notice back on the slideshow in Harry's office, or his tent rather, there was actually a slide that kind of determined something based on the water level. So that's an important piece of information that's going to actually send us back to his tent. You can kind of obviously determine this beforehand, but I think Nora kind of pieces it together more so the game likes it more when you go back around a second time.
I hope you didn't borrow this slide projector from the University of Denver, old pal. I think this is the right one.
So what this slideshow indicates is basically a code that will translate the original symbols or notes on the organ to different ones based on the sea level. So you'll take down your sea level. It may be different than mine. I believe it's been the same all 4 times that I've done it, but please let me know if you've run into anything different. However, you can still match it here, and basically what you need to do is take the 3 notes that you memorized from earlier on the mini piano that matched with the frequency in the ship. Take those 3 notes and translate them using that new codex to get 3 new notes, basically, and we're going to use those up on the organ. We're actually going to leave them open, so we want to play those notes.
Unexpected.
There's also a little secret here hiding at the end of the slideshow. You have to flip through a few blank slides, but basically it's like a cartoon of some kind of transformation. Check that out if you want. Another really well hidden achievement, like many of the others in this game.
What kind of doodad is this? It's well tuned. I expected no less from you, old pal.
So as you can see here, my frequencies associate with the numbers 1, 4, and effectively 6, although it's the 2 sideways triangles. And in order to translate that, you want to look at the right side or wherever the code is that you have to translate it. And I'm going to convert mine to the 2 up and down triangles, or 5, I suppose that is 1 again, and then 2. So that means I want to play the notes 1, 2, and 5, which is the up and down triangles. So we're going to give that a shot here. So another important detail down in Harry's office is actually the calendar on his wall, because it has a moon chart on it basically that will indicate that right now actually there's a new moon or no moon, and that means I want to have my dial completely closed. Of course, it could also be crescent or full, and you'd have to change it accordingly, but that's an important detail. It doesn't change based on the water level or anything like that, but you'll also write that down in your journal if it needs to be open, close, or crescent. So now I have the right notes open, and finally we have made it through chapter 3 here. Quite a spooky one, quite a lot of both frightening and interesting information regarding this new civilization, as well as all of this black ooze. It kind of took a back seat in this chapter, but I have a feeling it will come to the surface again pretty soon.
My dear old pal, I think I'm getting closer to understanding what is happening to you, but it is taking a toll on my sanity. As fascinating as this island and its ancient and unfathomable wonders may seem, it's also a place plagued with misfortune and calamities. We lost Roy at the campsite. we almost lost our engineer on this beach. The doctor went mad and stabbed him with a strange knife. And all because of this island, Nora. Initially, we were optimistic and in high spirits, but now we've all become resentful and discouraged. Even I can feel how I am constantly assaulted by dark thoughts. Anyway, if what I am going through here helps me find you a cure, it'll have been worth it. I hope to find an answer in the temple on that mountain peak. Love you always, Harry.
My poor Harry. He is worried, exhausted, disheartened. I will find you, my love. Wow. Let's see what the next one does. Where Harry must have gone. I'm not.
So this concludes Chapter 3. I want to thank you guys so much once again for joining me here. Things are certainly heating up, and it looks like we've unlocked a new path, the mountain actually, so they will probably only get more interesting from this point onward. But if you want to see more videos like these, please be sure to check out Master Sword. We've got coverage on this entire game, as well as others in the future. So thanks so much again for joining me, and I hope to see you all again in Chapter 4.